And our I can statement today is, I can learn how to fancy up my writing with a thesaurus. Okay? So that's why I'm dressed up so fancy today, because that's what we're going to do, is we're going to fancy up our writing. How many of you have a dad or an uncle or a grandpa or a family member that have a tool bag or a toolbox? Raise your hand. Okay? Are there different kinds of tools in there, Laurel?
Yeah.
And why do you think a toolbox has different kinds of tools?
So like when you're like fixing up a car, you need like a different tool to fix it.
Okay. So some toolboxes have screwdrivers, Trent. What do you do with the screwdriver?
Screws.
You unscrew things, right? Tony, what do you do with the hammer?
Bang stuff.
You hit nails or put nails in boards, right? What about a wrench? What do you do with a wrench, Travis?
Just like help or twist it in.
You can tighten things up or twist things in, right? So when we are using tools to fix things or maybe to make something, we have to use different tools to do different things. Well, when we are writing, we have to use different tools, and a thesaurus is one of those tools, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we start, I have a story that I want to read to you. It's called Thesaurus Rex. The author is Lene Steinberg, and the illustrator is Debbie Harder. And this is going to help us hopefully understand what a thesaurus is a little bit more. Pay real close attention to what Thesaurus Rex does. Thesaurus Rex starts his day stretching, reaching, extending, bending. Uh-oh, his pants need a little mending. What do you notice about all those words? Logan? He says they rhyme. Anybody else notice anything? Shelby, what do you notice about these words? They're exercises. Let's see as we read on a little bit more. Thesaurus Rex drinks his milk. Sip, sup, swallow, swill. Whoops, he's had a messy spill. Thesaurus Rex goes exploring, hunting, searching, foraging, poking, splish, splash, his feet are soaking. Thesaurus Rex likes to play, frolic, rollick, frisk, and romp. Wow, he's found a muddy swamp. Tyler, do you notice anything about all these words?
They rhyme.
You think they rhyme? Anybody else notice anything about all the words? Jake? He thinks they rhyme. Dallas, what do you think?
They're describing.
Ooh, they're describing. Let's read on. Thesaurus Rex starts to slip, slither, skid, and glide. Whee! What a speedy ride. So when it talks about Thesaurus Rex starting to slip, and it says he slithers, he skids, and he glides, and he slides. What about all those words? Lucy? You think slide, skid rhyme? No? Listen to them again. Thesaurus Rex starts to slip. Thesaurus Rex starts to slither, skid, slide, and glide. What do you notice, Caden? He says they all have an I in it. What do you think, Maylin?
All action words.
She says they're all action words. Let's read on. Thesaurus Rex lands in mud, slime, slush, mirror, and muck. Oh no, now he's stuck. Thesaurus Rex calls his mom. Howl, yowl, squill, and shout. Whoosh, plop, she pulls him out. So if you were stuck or calling your mom, could you yell or squeal or shout or call? Do those all mean the same thing? Let's see. That's what we're going to help us figure out what a thesaurus really does. Thesaurus Rex must get clean. He must wash, bathe, scour, and scrub. He's left some footprints in the tub. So let's look at these words. Clean, wash, bathe, scour, scrub. Do all those kind of mean the same thing? They do. And that's what a thesaurus helps us with. That's a tool to help us in our writing. Thesaurus Rex is ready to eat. munch, crunch, nibble, and gnaw. Chomp. He likes his dinner raw. That doesn't sound too good, does it? Thesaurus Rex leaps into bed. He bounces, jumps, springs, and flies. Tomorrow holds a new surprise. Thesaurus Rex is all wrapped up, bundled, covered, tucked in tight. He'll have happy dreams. Good night. And that was the story of Thesaurus Rex. And what happened in each page is when it talked about what Thesaurus Rex was doing, for example, on this one it says he goes exploring, hunting, searching, poking, and foraging. Those are all words that mean the same. And that's what a thesaurus helps us do when we're writing. So let's talk a little bit more about what a thesaurus has. First of all, a thesaurus is very similar to a dictionary. It has synonyms, and synonyms are words that mean the same. Sometimes you need an alternate or a different word instead of repeating the same word over and over. You know, when you're writing your pieces for Mrs. Eisenhower, do sometimes you feel like you use that same word over and over again? And you want your writing to sound like Fancy Nancy's, right? We want to fancy it up. So what a thesaurus can do is we can look up the word that we're using, and it's going to give us a synonym or a word that means the same. And here's how we remember that. Synonym starts with an S, and same starts with an S. Another thing that a thesaurus, or a tool for writing that we can use, is it gives us antonyms. And antonyms are words that are opposite, okay? And this thesaurus is really neat because it gives us words that mean the same and words that are different. And you know what else is really neat about thesaurus? It's sort of like a dictionary because it has guide words at the top that help us find where we're going, just like if we go on vacation and we have a tour guide. The guide words are like tour guides. And last, it's very similar or the same to a dictionary because it shows us ABC order. So I have a piece of writing that I wrote, and I want to read it to you, and I want you to see what you think about it. Let me pull it up here for us. The title of my writing is The Little Girl. Listen real closely and see what you think about my writing. What do you think about that, Mason? What do you think about my writing?
Wrote a good story.
You think I wrote a good story? Travis, what do you think? You said I put good in there a lot? I think you might be right. I put the word good a lot. So what could we use that we've been talking about today to make my writing fancy, or more like Fancy Nancy's and fancy it up? We can use a thesaurus. So what we can do is find the word good, since I used it a whole lot, and I think Travis is right. We can look it up in our thesaurus and find words that mean the same as it. That's why it's such a good tool as writing, for our writing. So what I would like you to do is on your table, you have a thesaurus, so if everybody would please get one. And before you open it, I want you to turn it sideways like this, where you can see the pages. And we are going to look up the word good. So what we learned is a thesaurus has the words in ABC order. So we have to think, is the G, the beginning of the word good, is it at the beginning of the alphabet, the middle, or close to the end? What do you think, Trent? Is G at the beginning, the middle, or the end? Trent thinks G is close to the end of the alphabet. Do you agree, Jordan? He doesn't agree. Where do you think it is? Beginning, middle, or end? He thinks it's close to the middle. Thumbs up if you agree that G is close to the middle of the alphabet. Everybody thumbs up if you agree, thumbs down if you disagree. McKenna, what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is G close to the beginning of the alphabet or the end? I think it's close to the middle. I agree. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our books kind of in the middle so we don't have to turn page by page by page. And then we're going to think, okay, my guide word starts with an I. So I need to think out loud to myself, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. G comes before I, so I'm going to turn back a few pages and look for a guide word that starts with a G. Would you please do that? And when you come to the guide words that start with the letter G, Then you need to start looking at what we call the entry words. Those are the dark, bold print because we are looking for the word good, G-O-O-D. And here it is right here if you need to spell it, G-O-O-D. And think about G-O, and then we have another O, so think about what should be in ABC order because a thesaurus is in ABC order just like a dictionary is. When you have found it, will you please put both hands on your shoulders like this? So the word good is on page 118. So let's look at it. If you would please put your finger on the entry word. It's called the entry word because it's the dark, black, bold print word. And if you notice, we have some words right beside good. Some of them are in dark, black, bold print, and some of them are in gray print. The ones that are in dark, black, bold print, those are the synonyms, or the words that mean the same as good. What do you think the words that are in gray mean? Abigail, what do you think those that are in gray would be? Opposite. Very good, the opposite, or antonyms. So if I'm looking at my writing and using my thesaurus to fancy up my writing, and I want to change this word good and use one of the others, I can't just plug one in. You have to make sure it makes sense in the sentence. So Tyler, would you pick one of the words and we could put it in here and see what you think it makes sense in our sentence instead of using the word good so many times? This one right here. Excellent. Okay, so come on up, Tyler. Let's write excellent. He's going to replace it. I'm right here. Excellent. And we're going to see, we can read it and see if it makes sense. You want to hold it and write it? Got it? So what Tyler's doing is he looked up a synonym or a word that means the same as good, and he's going to write it, and we're going to read it in our sentence because there's your eraser. Sometimes we can't just pull a synonym out of thesaurus and say, oh, I'm going to stick it in my writing to fancy it up or make it sound better. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. What, sweetheart?
Still not working.
Let's try it again. There we go. All right. Sometimes it's tricky. Thank you. So let's read what it says. The excellent little girl always played with her dolls. Does that make sense instead of saying good?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Trent, would you come up and pick another good that we repeated too many times and see if we can find a synonym, and we're going to circle it. So circle one that you'd like and we'll fancy it up with our thesaurus. Okay. And what word from the thesaurus would you like to use? Fine. Okay. You want to draw an arrow up here and we'll write it up there? Okay. So Trent wrote the word fine. Will you read it in our sentence for us and see if it makes sense?
So good when her mom went to the grocery.
You think that sounds okay? So sometimes it's okay to just plug one out of the thesaurus and put in, and sometimes it's not. We have to read our sentence and make sense, and make sure it makes sense in our writing. So let's go back to our I can statement. We need to erase over so we can read it. If we remember from the beginning of our lesson, it says, I can learn how to fancy up my writing with a thesaurus. So a thesaurus gives us synonyms, or words that mean the same, or antonyms, words that are opposite, and it puts them in ABC order, and it has our guide words or our tour guides. So it is an excellent tool when you are writing, so that it's kind of like your grocery list. I said good, 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 good so many times in my writing, just like we might have a long grocery list. We want to fancy up our writing, just like Fancy Nancy fancies up her words and her stories so that our writing sounds even better than it already does. So I want you to try it for just a moment. Each one of your tables, depending on the color of your caddy inside your bag, you have a card that looks like this. And I have a word on it. So for example, this word is strike. What I want you to do in just a minute when I finish giving your directions, I want you to look up this word in your thesaurus, and I want you to fancy up your card. So I want you to write synonyms, or words that mean the same as this word. Where are you going to find those at? In the Thesaurus. And then I have some stickers and some fancy markers that you can use to write your words. So you're going to fancy up this card because that's what a thesaurus helps us do. It's a tool for our writing that helps us fancy up our writing. That's why I'm dressed fancy today. You can use the stickers and the markers to fancy it up. What's some of the synonyms that you got?
Warm, make, hot,
All right, let's think about what we learned today. In our I can statement, we said that we're going to learn how to fancy up our writing. So a thesaurus is a tool, just like a screwdriver or a hammer or a wrench, is that when we're making something or building something or fixing something, a thesaurus is a good tool that we can use to fancy up our writing. And that's what you did. Tyler, may I borrow yours for just a moment? So Tyler had the word strike. So what he did is he looked the word strike up in the thesaurus and he found synonyms or words that mean the same as strike. So Tyler, would you come up and share some of yours with us? And tell us some of the synonyms that you could use for the word strike in your writing that you found.
Jab, knock, hit, sock.
Very good. Let's give Tyler a nice fancy wand of good job. Let's give him a round of applause. All right. Let's see. Jordan, would you come up and bring your card? Would you like to share with us? So Jordan, what was the word that you had to look up?
Heat.
You had to look up heat. And can you give us two synonyms that you could use in your writing for heat instead of saying the word heat over and over?
Warm.
Warm or
make hot.
And make hot. So let's turn around. Come here, Jordan. We have to give you a fancy Nancy seal of approval. Let's give him a round of applause. Great job. Sam Smiotti, would you come up and bring your fancied up card? That's all right. Turn around so everybody can see. What word did you have to look up?
mighty,
Can you show everybody your card? And what are some synonyms that you found?
powerful, great, stout, heartily.
So he found powerful, great, stout, and what was the other one?
Heartily.
Heartly. Okay? So what could you do with the thesaurus, Sam, if you were writing?
Put those words in instead of saying mighty so many times.
Awesome job. Let's give him a fancy Nancy approval. Good job. Give him a round of applause. Good job. I want you to think about what you learned today. Would you open up your library learning journals for me to the first blank page and get a pencil out? So if you will open up your library learning journals to the very first blank page. Thank you, Dallas. That was very nice of you. I want you to think about what you learned today. So let's look at these pictures to help us, because this is going to help us what we're going to write in our library learning journal. You know, when you ride around in the car with your family, sometimes the windshield of their car looks a little muddy. If it's been rainy outside or you've been around the mud, Lucy, can you see out of this windshield to drive very well? No, you can't. So if you feel like what you've learned about the thesaurus today, you're still a little muddy, that means you and I need to sit and talk or go over what a thesaurus is or how to use it. You're going to say, you know what, Ms. Taylor, I think my windshield of what I've learned today is still a little muddy. I still need a little help. Or maybe your windshield might look like this. It has this one has a few bugs on it. Can you see, Dallas, out of this windshield? Can you see a little bit? Was it better than the muddy one? You can see a little bit. You still got a few bugs here, but you can still see a little bit. So if you feel like your windshield of learning is a little buggy, that means you still have a few questions. Can you put that down till we're finished? You still have a few questions about what a thesaurus is or how to use it. I want you to tell me, Miss Taylor, my windshield is a little buggy. And tell me, what questions do you still have? Or maybe today, since we're finished with our lesson, your windshield is clear. That means you totally understand what a thesaurus is. You understand how to use it as a tool to fancy up your writing, and your windshield is clear. So on your library learning journal, you're going to write down and let me know whether your windshield is muddy. That means you still have some questions. You need some help. Or you're going to write down that your windshield is buggy. That means you think you understand some of it, but maybe you still need help, or you still have just a few questions. Or I want you to write down that your windshield is clear. That means you totally understand our I can statement, you understand how to use a thesaurus, and you don't have any questions. So you need to tell me your windshield is muddy, buggy, or clear, and then you need to tell me why, okay? So don't just write down my windshield is clear. You need to tell me my windshield is clear because I understand how to use a thesaurus, I know how to look up words, and I can use it to fancy up my writing. So once again, your windshield is either muddy, it's buggy, that means you still have a few questions, or your windshield is totally clear. You may take your fancied up cards with you. You did a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious job today.
I'm trying to get that on.
Okay. Thank you for doing such a wonderful job and giving your personal best. So if everybody, would you go to your seat and raise your hand, please? If everybody would please stand up, push your chairs in, stack your library learning journals in a nice pile for me, and Tyler's going to come and collect them. Tyler, you can take them and stack them on top of my bookshelf over there.